Today, I want to talk about a couple of underlying issues that I'm already seeing after 5 weeks with the Buffalo Bills. Now, let's put it in perspective. This team is 4-1. They're still the top team in the AFC East, and they are one of the top teams in the AFC Conference, even though Jacksonville beat Kansas City last night to go to 4-1, and Indianapolis is also 4-1. So the Bills are still atop most of the power rankings. So it doesn't concern me that they lost one game in October to New England. Now, granted, it was a divisional game. It was a home loss, and the Bills haven't lost at home since 2023, back when Joe Brady took over for Ken Dorsey in November 14th to be specific. But again, it doesn't bother me that the Bills lost that one game. We knew that they weren't going to go 17-0. I'm going to preface this by saying that a lot of what I'm going to say in this clip is because I'm looking at the big picture with January and February in mind, because I'm starting to see some of the same problems that have been holding this team back in the postseason resurface once again. So that being said, the two biggest problems right now, aside from the injuries, aside from the penalties and the turnovers, because hopefully those can be cleaned up. But again, looking at it from a long-term perspective, the Bills need help at wide receiver and cornerback. So let's start at the corner position, because that one should be relatively quick to talk about, because really there's not too much to talk about, because unfortunately Maxwell Harrison is still recovering from his knee injury. Dorian Strong is seeing a specialist for his neck, and Trey White is just not the same player anymore. So you can't really fault the Bills that much for that, because it was a good feel-good story. You were hoping that you didn't have to rely on Trey, but now when the two rookies go out, you kind of have to rely on Tre'Davious White. So now Bean is going to have to figure something out, whether it's Jamarcus Ingram, maybe Jordan Hancock, the rookie from Ohio State, can get some more looks on defense. Maybe you sprinkle in Cam Lewis a little bit more. I know he's not a boundary, but Trey was definitely showing up the other night. And of course, I had to be with Stephon Diggs, as he just ate, as I will get to his stats in a little bit. So the defense, I know it's a concern, but really, I thought that the defense bailed out the offense the other night. And it should be a little bit rejuvenating, I guess, maybe a little bit encouraging, the fact that they're going to get Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi back. Hopefully, Ed Oliver returns soon. But unfortunately, Matt Milano re-injured his pec, and that guy, as much as we love him, same with Trey, right? We just love these guys, but Milano just cannot seem to stay healthy. So overall, I know Hoyt and Ogunjobi aren't going to be the saviors, and you're probably going to see some of the same issues. But overall, I want to hold off on these concerns for the defense until we can get a better look at the starters meshing together. What I really want to talk about is the wide receiver position, because point blank, it is just not good enough. I know that the Bills have gone with this everybody eats approach, and it's been working up to this point. But the Patriots showed how you can slow down and beat this high-powered Bills offense, because what they did was they slowed down James Cook and the dominant Bills run game, which was first in the league. James Cook only had 49 yards on 12 carries. Ray Davis has been an afterthought as his complement. Ty Johnson is another sneaky player that really hasn't been getting enough looks. He only has one catch for 5 yards. And this comes after Josh Allen said that he's the best third down back in the league last year. So I would love to see the Bills sprinkle Ty Johnson in more. But what the Patriots did was they slowed down the Bills' rushing attack. They stacked the box and they defended the middle of the field. And they said, you know what? We have really good corners in Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. We are going to test the Bills' wide receivers to beat us on the boundary. And to this point, after 5 weeks, the Bills' wide receivers have not proven that they can win on the boundary. They have not proven that they can consistently get that separation and win down the field. Curtis Samuel and Josh Palmer were the two big free agent signings of the last two off seasons, and so far to this point, they have been very underwhelming. Samuel can't stay on the field consistently, whether it's been injuries, illness, a lack of Joe Brady being able to scheme him open, and what he did the other night against Patriots for that touchdown reception. I love that. That's the Curtis Samuel that I want to see. Or maybe we just need to accept the fact that Samuel isn't that good for the contract that the Bills gave him. You look at Josh Palmer, he played 25% of the snaps against the Saints, and he only had 2 catches against the Patriots. One was on the final play of the game, which really meant nothing. So those two guys have been a disappointment. Elijah Moore, who was signed after the draft, he was a healthy scratch. He essentially took Curtis Samuel's spot as a healthy scratch the other night. So those guys have just been fluctuating. And Tyrell Shavers, granted, he's only the wide receiver 6 on this team, but he's been an afterthought as well. He's been non-existent in the passing game. And the Bills talked all offseason about finding a vertical threat down the field, right? They wanted to stretch the field vertically and horizontally. And where was that? So now what you're seeing is because the Bills receivers are struggling to get open, and I have a stat here to back this up. The Bills are 28th in average target separation with 1.4, with Josh Allen being ninth in completion rate over expected. And that's from ProAnt with Cover One, who breaks down all the film and does a great job. Now, granted, these are throws over 20 air yards. So it is a smaller sample size, but that just shows how these receivers are not getting open. And again, Palmer was supposed to be one of these guys who was brought in for that reason. So when you're not winning down the field, and you have a team like the Patriots who are testing you to throw on the boundary, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have Josh Allen scrambling around trying to make something happen off script, and he was under pressure all night just trying to make something out of nothing because no one was winning down the field. Now, I should say that Allen wasn't perfect because there was that one clip on third down where Samuel was open and Josh missed him. So I don't want to act like Allen is perfect. But overall, the Bills do not have that wide receiver who can just win. Right now, I would say that the Bills have three reliable pass catchers. Dalton Kincaid, who's been breaking out in his third year, playing the tight end position. Khalil Shakir, who is a very crafty and slippery slot receiver. And James Cook out of the backfield. After that, what do the Bills have? I guess you could say Keon Coleman, but he's more of a tweener. And if you look at it from that perspective, when your main pass catching targets are a tight end, one, maybe two wide receivers, and a running back, how is that going to get you to February? It just doesn't sit with me that Bean went on WGR to gaslight a large portion of this fan base into thinking that they were set at the wide receiver position just because they scored 30 points a game. And again, the Patriots showed what happens when the Bills offense is not clicking and you have the right personnel to slow down this high-powered offense. So after the game Sunday night, I was up just on Twitter, reading people's reactions, trying to compile stats, and I came across this. I was going through some box score stats, and I was like, wait a sec. And I started putting some numbers together, and I was like, holy cow. So I turned this into a tweet, and here is an absolutely wild stat. I mentioned how we'd get back to Diggs' receiving stat line. So he caught 10 passes for 146 yards the other night. Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, and Elijah Moore's receiving stat line over the last 3 weeks combined, 10 receptions, 131 yards, and a touchdown. And like I said, not only is that an indictment on the Bills wide receivers, it's an indictment on their secondary for not being able to cover Diggs. It's an indictment on coaching and management. This stat epitomizes the majority of their problems. Now, I had someone respond to that tweet and say it's kind of unfair to compare wide receivers 3 through 5 to a wide receiver 1. And that wasn't a Stephon Diggs tweet. That was me saying that for the money that you're paying those guys, that is unacceptable to have that little production for that much money, because Curtis Samuel's contract was 3 years worth up to $30 million. Palmer was signed 3 years worth up to $36 million. Elijah Moore was 1 year worth up to $5 million. That is over $70 million for them to basically do nothing over a 3-week span and get outproduced by one single receiver, whether he's wide receiver 1 or not. That is my point there, that is unacceptable. And again, you have a generational quarterback, and you better figure something out, because that was one of the things that held this team back last year in Kansas City. As much as we talk about the defense, Josh Allen had the ball in his hands on that final drive, looking to either tie or take the lead, and they cannot get the job done. So I think that Brandon Beane needs to make a move for a wide receiver who can bring some speed and some separation abilities, some rack and some yak, and maybe some return abilities as well, like a Rashid Shaheed with the Saints. I think that he would be a perfect wide receiver for this offense. I don't know if he's available, but just based on the fit, that's what I think this team needs, because clearly it's not good enough. Or maybe I should say, maybe Joe Brady hasn't been using them right, because really, I think, in my opinion, that Brady has regressed this season. He doesn't have that same punch that he's had for the last year and a half, and he's been very cute and very conservative. And I know you could pick some plays where the Bills have thrown those passes of over 20 air yards, but it just seems like everything is at or near the line of scrimmage and nothing is past the sticks. So I don't know exactly what the answer is. Again, the Bills are still 4-1. It's not time to panic, but I'm seeing some of these issues rear their ugly heads again. And like I said, after Sunday night's game, it just felt like a microcosm of what we saw last year in Kansas City. Wide receivers not being able to get open and cornerbacks not being able to cover effectively. For more raw, digestible takes and analysis here, make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure you smash that like button and drop a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on the Buffalo Bills season up to this point and what you would like to see changed moving forward.